The townfolk called Miss Bush a witch, a recluse, who hid over $50,000 on her farm before she was found murdered. They looked all over the farm for her lost treasure, but never found it. This is her story and where her farm was located. Mr. Cordis was found beaten to death in his home about a mile from the railroad tracks by someone trying to steal his buried treasure. The murderers never found it, and nobody else did either. Here's the story and where he lived. They say Patrick Mulchrone buried his wealth on his farm. He died without telling anyone where it was. His body was found in the yard, partially eaten by his animals, but his money wasn't found. This is his story and where his farm was. Hello, and welcome to Lost Treasure Stories. Hi everybody, Gary here. Before we go any further, I want to introduce you to my helper, Rocky the Robot. I really would rather not need him to help me do these videos because he's a little obnoxious, pushy, and overbearing. But I have no choice. It's better for me to have him read all the treasure hunting articles instead of me, because it's a challenge for me to read all that text. So I really hope you don't mind, and I'll try to keep him under control for you. But I need to warn you, in the background, you might hear at any time ducks quacking, chickens cackling, roosters crowing, dogs barking, cats meowing, or my neighbor's loud Latin music playing. Just think of it all as natural background music. I could start my own petting zoo around here. Okay, here's Rocky.
What do you mean, old man? Pushy? Obnoxious? Overbearing? I don't need this, you know. I'll walk away and get a job at Disney, or maybe become a bartender. Is that what you want? I don't need you. You need me.
Okay, I'm sorry, Rocky. Let's just move on. Okay, that's enough of Rocky for now. I want to tell you a little about me, so you'll know where our lost treasure stories come from. I've been doing historical research for over 45 years now. Since the 1970s, I've specialized in stories of treasure buried and lost by farmers and ranchers. Over all those years of research, I've filed away hundreds of lost treasure stories. Oh sure, I've got the stories that were published in all the old treasure hunting books and magazines, and the stories that are all over the internet. But through research of old historical newspapers, family biographies, and historical archives, I've got hundreds and hundreds of stories that haven't been heard of for 75 to 150 years. I've got stories from every state in the U.S. I've kept those stories a secret all these years. Oh sure, my partner John and I have made recovery attempts on a handful of locations, but most of the locations haven't been searched in a very, very long time. But I'm in my 70s now. I think it's time to share my secret files with other people. Why would I do that? Because making these videos makes me feel like I'm out there searching for lost treasure. So I'm going to spill the beans with no holding back. I'm going to give you all the facts and details that I have on every story in these videos. But before we get started, I want you to know that I don't look at this as just my YouTube channel. To me, it's your channel too. So be sure to subscribe to our channel. After all, you'll want to know whenever I post any new videos. especially when it involves a story from your own state. If our channel keeps growing, I'll keep posting new videos. But there's another reason to subscribe as well. I'm planning on turning every story in these videos into a printable online ebook. I'm going to make that ebook available to my subscribers only. So go ahead and subscribe now. And now on to the Lost Treasure Stories.
Okay, the article says 5 years ago, Miss Celia Bush, who had been noted for an estate valued at several $1,000s, situated near Williamsburg, married a school teacher named Murphy. The woman was then about 60 years of age, and Murphy was credited with having married her for her money. After living together 3 months, Murphy suddenly disappeared and was not seen again until several days ago, and then only for a short time. Yesterday afternoon, Miss Bush, as she was called since her husband left her, was found in a thicket, murdered. Her throat was cut from ear to ear, and her skull had been beaten in with an axe. Her house is situated in the center of a dense clump of woods, almost inaccessible to pedestrians, and she has been the sole inhabitant of it since girlhood, except during the brief period of her married life. She very seldom left her secluded place, and worked the farm herself. It was not unusual to see her plowing, and as she drew all her money from the bank years ago, it was generally accepted that she was very rich. She was never known to spend a cent of money, existing solely on cornbread and bacon, the product of her farm. In the neighborhood she was regarded as a witch, and it was certain that she had concealed about her place all the money which had come to her from her parents, along with the farm. The precise amount of this money cannot now be ascertained, as the murderer, who it is suspected was Murphy, ransacked the building from top to bottom, tearing open bureaus, trunks, and other receptacles in search of valuables. Murphy, the missing husband, was a remarkably good-natured man, as all remember, and this fact leads many to doubt his guilt. While teaching school he proved to be thoroughly educated, but was undoubtedly remarkably lazy. When he learned of Miss Bush's wealth, he commenced to pay her attentions, and furnished the neighborhood quite a sensation by marrying the old lady, despite her 60 years. Not long after the marriage, Murphy resigned his position as schoolteacher and commenced to lead a life of idleness. This enraged the hard-working woman, who insisted that he should work beside her in the field. He declined, and after several weeks' squabbling, during which Murphy discovered that he could not hope to get any of his wife's money, he disappeared. About 2 years ago it was learned that he had been seen in a Delaware town, just beyond the Maryland border. From the time her husband disappeared, the old woman became even more austere in her life. She never employed help of any kind, mowing and stacking her grain, which she had previously planted and cultivated. Nearly all the produce of her place she sold, and as she never bought anything, it literally became a mystery as to how she could sustain life. 40 years ago, she must have had $50,000, and she probably doubled this during the period named. She never kept a bank account, and the money was undoubtedly concealed about the house prior to the murder. State Attorney Henry came to the place today and took charge of the effects, but a rigorous search failed to give any clue to the murder. The murder was discovered by a laborer on an adjoining farm, who, in passing through the woods yesterday afternoon, noticed that Miss Bush was not working in the field. Suspecting that she was very ill, as she had never before been known to be idle, she went to the house and saw that it had been robbed. The neighbors found the body after an hour's search. Celia Bush, said an old lady of this town today, was a beautiful girl 45 years ago when she was about 20 years of age. She was educated in a private school in Wilmington, Delaware, and she was engaged to a man named Morley when she came home after graduating. Morley was a small, delicate man, ugly as sin, but evidently a gentleman. Celia was crazy over him, and when he jilted her one day for a schoolmate, a Wilmington girl who was visiting her, she became virtually insane. In fact, I think she did lose her reason through grief, as she was delirious for more than 3 weeks with typhoid fever just after Morley left her. When she married Murphy 5 years ago, I think she was crazy, as she several times asked me if I did not think he looked like her girlhood's lover. Anyway, from the time Morley disappeared she became misanthropic, and when her parents died suddenly of smallpox 3 months later, she shut herself up from the world and commenced leading the life which has made her famous hereabouts for so many years.
Okay, and that concludes the lost treasure story of Miss Celia Bush. Coming up next is our next story in this episode. Good job, Rocky.
Good job? Listen, you old fart. I was awesome. Don't sell me short. These people all know how awesome I was. Let's get on with this story so everybody can see how awesome I am some more. The title of this story is Rich Old Hermit is Murdered by Robbers. It's from a newspaper article out of Tracy, California, January 28, 1908, and it reads like this. Rotje Cordes, a hermit rancher about 70 years old, was found last night lying in a pool of blood in the kitchen of his home, a mile from the Southern Pacific tracks at Midway, close to the Alameda County line. His head had been battered into a pulp by 2 robbers, using the butt of a shotgun. The house had been searched from basement to attic for the fortune the old man had buried. He wanted to lend his money to friends, saying that he had no faith in banks. It is not believed that the robbers found any money, as he is said to have buried it underground, but no excavations could be found. An overcoat found on the place may lead to the identity of the murderers, who must have been persons acquainted with the hermit. His body lies in the morgue here, while officers are searching the foothills. There's an update on this story. It's from a newspaper article out of Stockton, California. The title is Hermit's Gold Found Under Cabin. A part of the buried money belonging to the hermit farmer named Cordis, who was murdered in his cabin near Tracy 2 weeks ago, was found today by a party working under the direction of District Attorney McNoble. Under the foundation wall of his cabin, and in a hole made in the basement footing of the wall where a stone had been removed, was found a small tin can which contained 3 small sacks of gold, amounting to $500, all in double eagles. Some of the money had been minted in 1906, showing that the old man had received it recently, probably when he sold the right-of-way for the Western Pacific Railroad through his foothill ranch. The money all showed dirt on it, indicating that Cordis had buried it in other places. It is believed by men who knew the old man well that he had several $1,000s buried around his cabin, and a thorough search will be made for the rest of the money. The prosecuting officers are not satisfied that they have the right track of the murderers yet, so they have one suspect in jail at Sacramento. Cordis was brutally beaten to death in the rude shack he called home.
And that's the lost treasure story of Rotje Cordes. We're going to move on to the last story in the episode here today. And Rocky, that was an awesome job. Just awesome. I've never heard a more awesome job in my whole life.
Of course. I know that.
Okay, I hope everybody's enjoying our lost treasure stories. And now it's time for the lost treasure story of Patrick Mulchrone.
Wait, let's just skip this last story, and I'll just talk about me instead. How's that sound?
No, Rocky, we're not going to skip this last story. Let's get on with it.
Who in the world would want to hear about some lost treasure story when they could hear a story about me instead?
No, Rocky, let's get on with it.
Okay, fine. This is a newspaper article from September 5th, 1899. The title of the story is Murdered for Money. The article reads, What seems without doubt to be the murder of a helpless old man for his money has just come to light several miles south of this city. Some young men found the remains of Patrick Mulchrone, the flesh on every exposed portion of the body eaten off by dogs, rats, and chickens. One of his legs had been eaten off at the knee joint and carried away. Officials have come to the conclusion that Mulchrone was murdered, but there is no basis on which to make an arrest. He lived alone and was reputed to be wealthy.
And that's the story of the lost treasure of Patrick Mulchrone. And we have now it's time for our very special bonus story. You're going to be amazed.
Oh, now we're going to talk about me. I was beginning to think it wasn't going to happen.
No, Rocky. This is a story about a poor farm couple in Illinois in 1982 that found a pile of gold collector coins while they were digging out their septic tank.
Are you kidding me? I'm going to go off on you, old man. This is the story of Doris and Bill Collins, a poor farm couple in Illinois in 1982, who found $195,000 in 1850 to 1860 gold double eagles. This is an article from an old magazine called Treasure Found, back in 1982. Now the magazine is no longer around, but the article goes like this. The coins look like they were just made yesterday, said a reporter on the scene. And that statement may well mean that the 75 gold coins found near a septic tank will be in the neighborhood of $1.5 million. Even at the lowest price for the $20 gold pieces, which is about $2,600 apiece, the value would still be $195,000. The incredible story of how a previously downtrodden couple wound up with a fabulous gold treasure actually began with the famed California gold rush. It was in the famed 1849 gold rush that a big strike had made a fortune for two Englishmen named Appleyard and Walton. According to legend in this area, Appleyard settled near Grayville, Illinois, buying a section of land covering some 160 acres. Furthermore, it indicates that Appleyard became critically ill and summoned Walton, supposedly to tell him where he'd catch a large number of gold coins. Just before Walton could reach his old prospecting partner, though, Appleyard passed away. As the years rolled by, several people came to the acreage to try their luck at finding the hoard, all apparently without success. In 1977, Bill and Doris Collins bought a 40-acre tract, cut out of the original 160-acre spread of the Englishmen. With 4 children, the Collins had enough trouble meeting the mortgage payments. Then last summer there was a crippling drought, with heavily reduced crop yield. Both husband and wife were forced to take second jobs in an auto oil and filter producing factory. It seemed to be the final straw when the septic tank suddenly sank. Bill Collins slowly made his way out to the scene of their latest setback and began digging just off to the side of the old tank. You can search for coins for years and never make a major find, and you can go out in your backyard, cursing your bad luck, and uncover instant wealth. Collins's shovel struck a shining round object, a coin, a gold coin. On the outside chance that it was not just a random discovery, the excited farmer began digging by hand and continued until he had unearthed 75 gold coins, dated 1850 to 1860. At first, reports of the find were muddled. Some said Collins had found the hoard. Others said it was actually Tom and Fred Cox, brothers of Mrs. Collins, who found the gold coins, which, according to this version, were found on their property while they were digging a water line for a mobile home. But before long, it was learned that an attorney had advised the Collins to immediately transfer the treasure to a safety deposit box and to have an appraisal. A Chicago coin expert was called in, and his preliminary report stated the coins would be worth $2,600 each, while the maximum per coin would be $15,000 to $20,000, though that figure would be for prime uncirculated coins. Another observer, though, saw 12 of the coins and said they were actually appeared to be in mint condition. When Mrs. Collins reluctantly agreed to an interview with a local reporter, she said she felt the coins were truly a godsend. They had been so down on their luck. When asked about what her future plans for the sale of the coins would be, she replied that they would probably sell only what was necessary to keep the farm solvent, and then keep the rest of the gold pieces, hoping they would go up in value. At last word, the Collins were on a vacation, reportedly to visit a sick relative, but the rumors persisted. One claimed that Mrs. Collins' brother had been given a partly damaged coin from the hoard, and that he had sold it for $900. And that's the end of the story printed in the Treasure Found magazine, but there was an update later that year. According to a story that appeared in Farm Show magazine, the coins were worth considerably less. In fact, the Collins family sold the first 25 coins for $16,000, an average of $640 each. With the money, they put in a new septic system and used the balance to make a hefty payment on their farm mortgage.
Okay, and that concludes episode 1 of our new YouTube page. I hope everybody appreciated it. I appreciate everybody out there listening. So we're going to go ahead and sign off now, and I look forward to the next story being posted.
No, wait. We're not signing off yet. I have a little talk I'm going to give, so don't cut me off. I want to tell everybody where I came from. It all started in a little log robotic manufacturing company. Workers there began to assemble me, and then,